Welcome to our sensory room training.
What's a sensory room? A soothing and stimulating space that helps children regulate and be prepared for learning.
How does it work? The sensory room provides low lighting, calming, quiet spaces that can provide comfort to children when sensory processing difficulties.
Which senses? The sensory room targets proprioception, which is your sense of where your body is in space, vestibular, which is balance and having to do with your inner ear, visual, tactile, and auditory senses.
Sensory room rules. Number one, students must be supervised by an adult who has been trained to use this lab at all times.
Number two, keep all sensory items in the sensory room.
Number three, sensory room must remain a quiet and resting place.
Number four, no more than 6 students in the sensory room at a time.
Number five, respect the equipment and the teachers.
Number six, when finished, return all sensory items to their proper place.
Number seven, in an emergency, leave the sensory room.
Number eight, never use time in the sensory room as a reward or a punishment.
Our suggestion is 6 students, 2 to 3 per station, with 15 minutes per station rotations.
Available equipment by sense: visual, gel floor tiles, lights, projectors, low lighting in the room, and a tent.
Vestibular, hammock, beanbag chair, crash pad, bouncing, jumping, and the trampoline.
Auditory, clear touch videos with sound.
Proprioception, heavy work including pushing, pulling, carrying, walking on hands, crash pad, and therapy ball.
And tactile, the alligator fidget panel and the fiber optic hairs.
Trampoline, number one student at a time.
Number two, hand remains on the handrail at all times.
Number three, no jumping off the trampoline.
Students with Down syndrome must have parental permission to use the trampoline due to possible neck instability.
Therapy ball. 1. Students may sit or bounce on a mat with supervision.
Number two, students may lie on their belly and walk on hands with supervision.
Students may lie on the mat and have the ball rolled over them with supervision.
Students need supervision due to fall risk.
Adults should not apply pressure through the therapy ball. Students with feeding tubes, history of surgery, or otherwise medically fragile must be cleared to participate and play with therapy balls or any other equipment due to safety concerns.
The hammock. Number one, do not use as a swing.
Number two, one student at a time with supervision.
Number three, do not allow standing in the hammock.
Crash pad. Number one, falling into the crash pad is acceptable use.
Number two, do not allow flips or somersaults onto the crash pad.
Number three, do not allow students to crash into pad when other students are using it.
The crash pad and the hammock are some of the equipment that can provide tactile, vestibular, and proprioceptive feedback.
The fidget items. Number one, use fidgets seated at a table or on the beanbag.
Two, leave fidgets in the sensory room.
Number three, return fidgets to proper containers when finished.
Fidgets and tabletop toys can help combat feelings of boredom and anxiety.
The alligator fidget panel. Number one, several students can use this at one time.
Number two, monitor that items are not pulled off the panel.
The fidget panel can help develop fine motor skills and tactile boredom.
Bubble tube panel. Number one, students may gently touch the bubble tubes.
Number two, keep remote out of reach of students.
Number three, turn off at the end of the day.
The strip lights. Please do not allow students to touch these.
Number two, keep the remote out of reach of students.
Number three, turn off each day.
Fiber optic lights. Students may play with the fibers with their hands.
Do not pull on or step on the fibers.
Do not unplug fibers or light displays.
Lights can help develop visual skills and create a soothing visual interest.
Use with caution. Flashing lights can trigger seizures.
The
The
pu-
tent. Limit 2 students at a time.
Do not squish or bend tent as this may cause tent to break.
Number 3, students may bring blankets, plushies, and books into the tent.
Tents allow students to create a smaller, less overwhelming space for themselves.
Gel floor tiles. Number 1, students can step on tiles for visual sensory input.
Number 2, students may rearrange tiles into patterns.
Number 3, tiles must be placed back in proper position when leaving the sensory room.
Gel floor tiles allow students to receive proprioceptive and visual sensory input.
The pop-up tunnel. Number 1, students can crawl through the tunnel for proprioceptive or visual input.
Students may crawl and tunnel or roll items through, such as a ball.
Please tie up the tunnel and place it back in the sensory room.
The pop-up tunnel allows students to receive proprioceptive and visual sensory input.
Assign a sensory room hero. This can be a student.
Some of the hero's tasks can include turning on all sensory lights in the morning
Returning displaced items to their proper place.
and turning off all sensory lights in the afternoon.
Here are some resources if you have a clear touch in your space. These include videos that have calming visuals and sounds.
Equipment may vary from school to school. If your school adds more equipment, we can offer additional training.
And here's how to contact us.
Please follow the link below to acknowledge you have completed the sensory room training.